Hi, my name is Ujjwal, and today I want to talk about the different roles in design. You may have seen all of these different names, so I want you to understand what they mean and if one of those roles are for you. There is UI UX design, there is UX design, there is product design, there is visual design, there is UI design, there is UX copywriting, there is UX research, and there is interaction design. These are just some of the terms that I picked for this video. If there are more, you can obviously comment down below and let me know. So let's start with UI UX design. Now, back in 2013, when I started my journey as a designer, this was a very popular term. In today's day and age, it's just my opinion, but I feel that it's a little outdated, at least for now. Back in the day, UI UX designer would mean that he is wearing multiple hats. He's doing everything from UI to research to wireframing to prototyping, all of those things. Plus, I would additionally get a lot of marketing stuff also. Of course, this would vary company to company. But UI UX in itself was a very broad term. A UX designer, I felt, was a more accurate representation of the role. So as a UX designer, you would ideate, you would conduct research or surveys if required. You would then create wireframes, you would create low and high fidelity mockups, you would create prototypes, and you'll ship the product. So this was traditionally the entire breadth of the role of a UX designer. The next one and the most popular one right now is the term product designer. Now, product designer is essentially a UX designer with a bit more responsibility and a lot of ownership. So you could see that a lot of product companies were coming up and they wanted designers to take more ownership. Now, I'm talking about designers who are not just shipping designs, but working with the product and analytics team to measure the impact of the designs that they have shipped. And based on that data, they're taking informed decisions for their next projects. That means that, we're going beyond design now. We're talking about more product ownership from the designers themselves. So this essentially, at least for me, is what a product designer's role is. And this is how I could distinguish a product designer role from a UX designer role. For a lot of small to mid-sized companies, you would see these broad roles more popular. But if you go to mid to large-sized companies, you would start seeing specializations in these roles. So one of which is a UX researcher role. Now, essentially, the UX research responsibility would fall under the UX designer or the product designer. But in some companies where, the scale is too big or it's a very fast-paced consumer product, there would be a need or a requirement for a UX researcher specifically to do research apart from whatever the designers are also doing. So in that case, the user researcher comes in. Their role basically plays around, conducting interviews, doing usability testing, doing surveys, and understanding what other competitors are doing secondary research. So all of that kind of falls under the role of a UX researcher. Now, again, all of this could also be done by a product designer for a small to mid-sized company. But for larger companies, this requires a specialized resource or a separate resource. And this is something that you could really get into because it's getting really popular at this point of time. Let me talk about UX copywriter now. So UX copywriter is the person responsible for all the microcopies that you see within an app or a product. So UX copy is so crucial at this point, especially if you're a consumer facing product, because a user needs proper feedback. They need guidance at every little step that they are on the product. So it's very important that those copies are very crisp, very clear, and you're able to understand the product without the need of getting help from anybody else. So UX copywriter does that kind of a job, and I think it's one of the very crucial part or roles that you could find in a consumer facing product. A UI designer is a visual heavy role. It requires a person to have very good UI skills, which involves crafting modern UI, creating very clean design. And I would really see this role coming into larger or mid-sized organizations where they want specialized resources, especially to just do UI and not do any part of the UX process apart from that. So a visual designer could be an extension of a UI designer, and it goes beyond the UI. It's also about creating the design language of the company, creating marketing collaterals, creating more visual assets for the company, and they could be used both in the UX team or the marketing team. Typically, the visual designer works with the marketing team, but I thought for this video we could at least keep one of those roles here so that the correlation can be made clearly. So an interaction designer is a very specialized kind of a role. So mostly, in mid to small companies, you would find that interaction design is expected out of the product designer. So in most cases, these job roles won't even pop up. But in larger organizations where they require somebody specifically for this purpose, they would hire an interaction designer who is responsible for all the micro interactions on the app or the product, or the transitions between one state to another or from one screen to another. So some companies, especially if that company is a consumer facing company, they would require somebody to specifically just do this in the product. So again, a very specialized field and requires a high skill set. But this is also one of the roles that you would find in UX design. So that's it for this video. If you think I've missed something here, if I missed a role, drop your comments below and let me know. I'm also available for one-on-one session on TopMate. You can check it out in the description below. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do subscribe and watch my other videos. I try to cover some topics around UX design, and I'm trying to build more content in the future. And if you have something specific that you would like me to talk about, I would love to do that. Thank you and have a nice day.